Our tale tonight begins in black and white. It begins in the squalid, humid slums of Panama City. It begins with a fatherless boy stealing on the streets to survive. The man who caught him was kind enough not to call the police. He directed the dark-eyed youth to a gym in the city. Inside that gym, Roberto Duran grew into the single most complete boxer whose prime exists on film.
I always felt that there was no one could beat him. I told him one time, I said, if you fought the heavyweight champion of the world, you could win.
Roberto Duran's cornerman is Ray Arcel, and he's one of the best in the business as a trainer.
Roberto Duran, some people think pound for pound the best fighter in the world.
Roberto's job was to hurt people, and he truly enjoyed his work.
This guy hits so hard. It'll make you miss, go to the body. And his sequence of punches to the body, to the midsection, was out of this world.
Tonight, we look at the most instinctively cruel fighter in human history in his natural habitat.
I mean, he looked at you with those dark, hollow, cold eyes, and he looked right through you, and sometimes that was just enough.
It starts as he's in with his first former champion. Hiroshi Kobayashi was an experienced pro coming to the end of a long and respectable career in the ring. Roberto Duran's respect ended when somebody stepped through those ropes. Often long before that. Duran's style is probably best described by a long series of odd cursing. He's a contradiction to describe. He's an aggressive, pressuring counterpuncher, a finely organized master of chaotic violence. The fresh-faced maniac gave Kobayashi a horrific beating. Ending in an even more horrific knockout. At just 20 years old, Roberto's raw fury was already something to behold. 2 fights and 6 months later, Duran got his title shot. Ken Buchanan was 46-1 coming in and won his championship off Duran's favorite fighter, fellow Panamanian Ismael Laguna.
Percentage in New York with a supplementary point system. That is not scoring the knockdown. I figure that perhaps Duran may punch himself out. Got some of the moves of Nino Benvenuti, Buchanan's corner.
Roberto fought like a heat-seeking missile made of food-insecure poverty.
They better be in shape for the long haul. Oh, he really hurt him that time.
Anything between Duran and his next meal was dead meat.
Buchanan fighting back in desperation.
Soon, the Scot's skin started tearing like it's perforated.
And there's a swelling above the left eye of Buchanan. And now Buchanan is starting to trade with his man. Both men in great condition. He took one flush, a couple flush.
Duran began to cut down the Scotsman like the Duke of Cumberland at Culloden.
Round 12.
Duran began his savage lightweight reign with an attempted castration of the deposed king.
Got 2 rough rounds ahead of him.
The fight was called since the 2 more rounds with Duran might have seen the Scotsman killed.
The new lightweight champion of the world, Roberto Duran.
Roberto fought 9 times his first year as champion. Hector Thompson went to Panama to fight for the title. Every round Roberto spent as champion, you can see him growing into his greatness. As his skills grew more awe-inspiring by the month, his respect for his opponents diminished into a disdainful sneer. Duran fights are difficult to watch because throughout his fights are sequences so filthy in their perfection they make you never want to spar again. Duran caught Hector on a nasty left hook that dropped him in the 3rd. Duran gets him again in the 8th. Only the ref saves Hector from getting dragged out. The difference a year can make in refining a champion is massive. You'd never guess less than a month before his title defense against Guts Ishimatsu, Duran had gone 10 rounds in a non-title decision. If steel sharpens steel, few champions were grinding harder in their first year than Roberto. By the time he takes on Guts in September of '73, he was on the verge of greatness. His elegance had grown by leaps and bounds. His feinting game starts to tie fighters in knots, leaving them on the tracks for that freight train of a straight right. Soon, the people of Panama were not the only ones saying it. Duran got up close and ran through Guts like a bayonet. To do Duran's mean genius justice, it would take hours of film or one long, vague gesture at his every attribute and ability. Back in the familiar humidity of Panama, Duran took a title defense against Ray Lampkin. A vicious fight broke out early. Lampkin was landing with his long reach. But this was a long run through the Panama jungle, and Duran was never far more than a step behind. Every round, Duran sunk his claws deeper into Lampkin's sides. In the 14th, the left hook shut a dehydrated Lampkin off like a switch. He didn't move for 80 minutes. In the post-fight interview, Duran said, "Tonight, I put him in the hospital. If we rematch, I'll put him in the morgue." A fight with Roberto was a gamble with your life. No lightweight in the world was getting good odds. Duran won his first 10 title defenses by KO. The first to survive the reign was Edwin Virouette. Duran and Virouette had history. They first met in Duran's first appearance in New York, since he won his title off of Buchanan. After the fight, furious at being booed for the first time in his life, Duran barges into Edwin's corner and they exchange a few choice words. Survival was as good as anybody had done in a while, so Virouette was given a rematch.
This fighter, sometimes in his footwork, he'll remind you of Ali. They have flung insults, they're wearing 8-ounce gloves. The ring, Roberto, an incredible sight of fights.
According to Edwin, they spent most of the early rounds insulting each other's wives and families between violent, often blatantly dirty exchanges.
Virouette next side. Virouette has to be the loser against the more powerful Duran.
The fight was full with good old-fashioned personal hatred. Duran wanted nothing more than to stand and trade.
Sound and fury and signifying nothing.
Virouette's foot speed made it difficult for Duran to keep the gap closed for long. Virouette had the survival skills, awkward timing, and long reach.
Not your classic punch. He is your classic box. Got it. This is 5th round action.
Duran was boxing's greatest grappler. If he got a grip, you were as good as trapped.
A good right by Duran, and Virouette shakes his head. No, won't let up. Vince Lombardi once said
If Duran got his forehead into you, you were losing. Edwin hung in there with annoying determination,
what a performance he has given.
but lost a clear decision on all the judges' cards.
Duran, the winner. Duran, unanimous decision.
As Duran continued to bully the lightweights, the question soon became, who's left? After a second knockout over the only man to ever beat him, Duran relinquishes his title and goes looking for a fight. Picking on somebody his own size was nothing more than a hunt now. Roberto wanted a more dangerous game. He found himself at 147 pounds, taking on former champion Carlos Palomino. Duran put on a vulgar display of skill. Palomino tried to impose his size on Duran early.
Taking the play away again.
Duran dug in heels and fired back fists.
That's a good fighter. Duran has not let him.
Soon Duran began to impose his ferocious skill. It's arguably the greatest display of feinting in any championship fight.
Between a great small man against a good, bigger man, and right now the great small man is stopping. I wonder if Palomino regrets taking the fight. So we'll have to wait in this round.
Carlos reacted to everything and constantly got two for flinching.
To everybody's satisfaction that he can take a welterweight punch. He just looks like Giselle.
Duran smiles that malevolent smile and continues ripping into the bigger boxer. The non-title 10-round distance saved Carlos from a life-altering beating. As he walked to the ring in Montreal to deliver his most immortal performance, he was already a legend. Roberto Duran was 72-1 by the time he got the call to face Sugar Ray Leonard for his welterweight title. Joe Frazier was sitting ringside. A reporter asked Frazier if Roberto reminded him of anyone. It was a leading question. When the heavyweight great replied, his answer was, "Duran reminds me of Charles Manson," which I think is a compliment. Duran and Frazier were both skilled swarmers with endless stamina. Roberto spent a significant portion of the week of the fight shouting insults at Ray Leonard's wife from a cab.
He's slowly cutting, you see that? Oh, he took a hard one.
Because the last thing a hunter wants is a chase. Ray Leonard's attempt to keep it real in Montreal went wrong quickly.
He hurt Leonard, and now he is holding on. I would never have believed it of Ray because what he's doing is getting his ribs caved. How about Tommy Loughran? But Leonard fights out of it. He's got Duran hurt. No! Duran, and Duran is answering back. Look at Ray go to the body. Leonard should not be caught there. He fainted up on the top step. Leonard has Duran in a bit of trouble. Relentlessly pushing him back into the ropes. Leonard fighting off the ropes.
Roberto starts repeatedly rocking, mocking, and mauling the younger, bigger champion.
Oh, a beautiful hook by Duran. Duran, he's trying to get out. Oh, a great shot from Duran. Not like Angelo to sell his fight. Good right hand. Right back. No advantage to either one. Just hurt Leonard, and Leonard comes back again. Look at Leonard fight back. And Duran, oh, they're going one after the other. Leonard coming back with a flurry of Duran answers to the judges unless one of each. Oh, a left hook by Duran. Right above Roberto Duran and Sugar Ray.
While Sugar Ray held tough, Roberto threw away the final round, taunting Ray on defense.
Duran thinks he has won the fight. I can't believe it. The bell. It's over.
And just to keep it consistent, the moment the fight is over and Duran knows he's won, he begins shouting at the 22-year-old champion, Wilfred Benitez, who was sitting ringside. He won 119 fights, 70 knockouts. He won championships all the way up to 168 pounds. His final title shot came in 1998, 20 years after his debut. The only reason he ever stopped fighting professionally was a car accident in 2001. So the story that started in black and white ends in under a modern lens. Roberto turned up in a pair of sparring sessions deep into his 60s, still showing the savage skills that will see that his name live long beyond his body, still talking smack to younger, bigger champions.